Thank you, Chairman. I was struck by Chairman Womack's opening statement regarding the disinterest that I think we all see in the budget resolution, and I think one of the reasons for that is that the question, the budget resolution, to what end, hasn't been answered. If the purpose is to create a reconciliation bill that is not even relevant to the fiscal task of the Budget Committee, which it has become recently, then it's hard to get too excited about that unless you're a proponent of the measure that is being driven through the reconciliation process. If you're doing budget resolution without a strategy or a timeline or a goal, it is hard to get excited about that as well, and I appreciate very much Mr. Capretta's focus on a target and getting there over time, because I think that's an important part of any serious budget fiscal process. It's also hard to get excited about a budget resolution where you don't even get the arithmetic right and add the elements that add to the deficit and the debt, which are revenue, appropriated spending, health spending, and tax spending. And if we're not looking at all of them, we're not even getting the arithmetic right. And finally, if the budget resolution doesn't help the appropriators get their 302s and it doesn't help solve the debt limit problem, again, hard to get too excited about it. So I think that gives us an array of tasks that can make the budget process meaningful again, and I want to particularly focus in my questioning on the debt ceiling, because I think you've all been really excellent on that subject. As Bill Douster was kind enough to point out, I view this as a zero upside bear trap in the bedroom. Worst case scenario, you step in the damn thing, and bam, now you've got a hell of a problem on your hands. Best case scenario, you avoid it and nothing good has been accomplished. That's not a really good equation. Bill, you've looked at this for some time. You have a lot of experience in the Senate. Can you think of one good thing in your experience that was accomplished in the Senate by virtue of the debt ceiling? Some people say it's an opportunity to give the minority a chance to hold the majority's feet to the fire or demand something. Has that actually ever happened?
I am not going to be able to find that example. And in fact, I think that you're right about, and many of you have expressed the concern with the debt ceiling. We carry around in our pockets little pieces of paper like this that are basically just promises based on the promise that the government is going to do what it says it's going to do in the budget process.
Let the record reflect he's showing a dollar bill.
It could have been, though, a treasury bill, treasury bond. If we have pieces like a paper like that, we sell them for real money, real things of value in the world. But if we mess up the debt limit, then we have to pay people more in order to borrow from them by giving them little pieces of paper. So whenever we do debt limit crises, we put in danger the whole system that relies on little pieces of paper like this.
Let me ask you if you could get back to me in a response to a question for the record, because I don't think we have the time to really drill into this now. But as I think my House colleagues will be first to recognize, the Senate is a peculiar place. And
we'll stipulate that.
I think your idea about using the budget process to, quote, automatically change the debt limit, I think makes a lot of sense. But I think it would be helpful to us if you brought your experience in the Senate with its procedures and with its parliamentary rules and so forth to drill down through that automatically change concept and see what kind of language you might perhaps even run by the parliamentarian and see how we'd actually do that. I think that's a really good concept, and I think one of the things that makes the budget resolution relevant again is if it does move the debt limit so you don't have that bear trap waiting out there for you. But as you know, the Senate's in a peculiar place, and if you could drill through to that, that would be, I think, very valuable for all of us.
Happy to do so, sir.
And to go back to Mr. Capretta's statement, you talked about setting a target for debt and deficit reduction over time. My observation has been that the current budget process, at least in the Senate, doesn't do that. There's no point in that process where we are asked to set what the target is And I think every witness so far has agreed that the target is a debt to GDP ratio. Whatever the number is, that's the metric for it. And we're not asked that in the budget process at any point. And given that we're looking at $21 trillion, as Congressman Arrington said, we're not going to do that overnight, so there has to be a glide slope to get there. And presumably there also have to be warning bells that let us know when we're off course. Is that the general concept that you had in mind about a target and over time?
It is, generally. I would support that as a way of doing the business. I'd also look at potentially present value calculation. That would be another way of bringing it down to one number that the public might be able to understand. Just have CBO.
Or do both.
You could do both.
So you can't game it so much.
Yeah, that's.
And does everybody agree that debt to GDP is the metric that we should be looking at in terms of?
I would quibble on 2 grounds, if you'll forgive me. One is
I'm out of time, so keep it brief, Bill. Yield back.
you should be looking at the rate of change, not just the stock. So deficits are just as important. Where you're going is important, and why you're going is important. If you have a high debt to GDP ratio and you're fighting Hitler, that's okay. But if you're not doing something important, then it's not.